This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Richard Burke. I'm Executive Director of Western Liberty Network. Western Liberty Network is a 501c3 dedicated to helping develop cadres of limited government, local office holders, campaign volunteers, and also citizen lobbyists. And today we'll be talking about things related to campaigning, particularly fundraising. And I'd like to begin by asking each of you, Dr. Frank, are you a candidate running for a race?
I am going to be a candidate running for the state Senate position for District 16, 2026.
Very good. Excellent. And what about you, Mary?
Well, I might not be appropriate for attending the meeting. I'm just grandma concerned about what's happening in our public schools and have grandchildren attending public schools.
It's okay. Everybody's appropriate for attending the meeting.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about raising money for a campaign or an organization today. And, this is applicable to all of those things. So if you ever think you might be in a position where you want to raise money for a project, a campaign, or an organization, this is a good place for you to be.
Nice.
We'll bring in people as they come. I'm going to send you a file right now through the chat window. Let's see. Okay.
You mean your form that you sent out?
Yes. I don't know if Mary has a copy of that or not. But we're going to do there we go. Send it. Okay. You can look at this later if you want to, or you can download it while we're talking and following along.
All right.
Before I get started, I have a couple of things I have to do pro forma. One of them is to point out that as a 501c3 organization, Western Liberty Network does not endorse or oppose any candidate, partisan or not, even the ones we train. We provide training and we trust them to go off and do good things with the information. If anyone expresses opinions on this podcast, they are the opinions of those who are expressed them. Western Liberty Network is not responsible for them. There are a couple of things I want to show you. I'm going to do a quick screen share. One of our affiliates is Western Liberty Network, is Parents' Rights in Education. And if you go to Parents' Rights in Education, just Google them on your browser, put Parents' Rights in Education, you'll be able to navigate to this, the Parent Activist Training Center. You can set up a free account, and that free account gives you access to some of parents' rights training materials that is very specific to school boards. You can also go to another website. This, of course, is the Western Liberty Network School or website. And there's a lot of information available here. A lot of it is found by scrolling down, a lot of different speeches by people in the know, different presentations about things like how to use social media in your campaign or your lobbying efforts. And there's a lot more involved in that. If you go to the top, go to the training tab, you will see that we have other resources. The training documents that I've just sent you, I've got a whole bunch of them here. Over 30 of them on various topics, and you can just click on them to see them. There's one on the care and feeding of volunteers, for example, but you can go down and see the ones you like. The bottom link allows you to download all of our training documents with one click. So that's nicer than having to do it 30 or more times. Scroll down a little further, and you'll find video recordings of other Zoom sessions we have had, over 2 years of them. I provide many of the trainings, but we have also guest trainers from time to time that give you good information. So that is available. And if you like what you see, you can always go to Support WLN and make a tax-deductible contribution to help us stay on the road, do training, all of those things. So that is information about the organizations that are providing this podcast for you. Are there any questions?
Is WLN state or fed national?
It's becoming national. Most of our training is still in Oregon, but we are and have been doing training in Washington. We've been brought out to Ohio and the state of Maine for various events. And so Western Liberty Network is expanding.
Nice.
We have a board of directors, we have a board of advisors, and we have a stable of volunteer trainers. So when I discuss WLN and using the word we, it's not just me, it's a lot of folks. No royal we here. So anyway, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and we'll go into the training that you wanted to be involved with. Let me ask both of you, have you ever raised money for an organization or a campaign before?
Yep, I have.
Tell me about that experience.
Well, it was a school board one,
Okay.
Which was in a small town, Colonial Beach, Virginia. It didn't require, a whole lot of money to sit there and run for that particular school board.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did that. I didn't really, actually, I just funded it myself because it wasn't that expensive to make the cards and the stuff like that.
Sure. And how about you, Mary?
I never was.
Speak up a little bit, Mary. Can't quite hear you.
Oh, sure. I was never the person who originated the fundraising, but I helped, like with Pacific Bible College, I helped with their fundraising efforts and stuff like that.
I'm sorry, Mary. I still can't hear you. So if you want to communicate, try to either adjust your microphone setting or else use the chat window. But we'll get back to that. And so we'll start. There are two sections I want to cover. Go ahead. Okay. There are two sections I want to cover today. First, how to raise money from individual donors. And the second one will be how to hold a fundraising event or a fundraising coffee, sometimes a dessert event. But one thing applies to both of them. If you only take one thing away from the training today, I hope it will be this. Conservatives and limited government types have a natural aversion to raising money, to doing the fundraising, to making the phone calls, to having the coffee. And that is because they do not see their need for money as a claim on people that have it. And so they're often reluctant to begin raising money because they don't want to come across as a beggar or come across as somebody who's particularly needy or weak. The left generally has less trouble with this. With the modern liberal mindset, need constitutes a claim on what someone else has. Whether you're talking about, healthcare, homelessness, or whatever, if somebody needs it, it constitutes a claim on what someone else has. And a lot of people on the left get right to it. So, when it comes to raising money for a campaign to do those things, they don't have as much of a natural aversion as conservatives do when it comes to raising money. And so there is an attitude adjustment you have to make before you raise any money. And the first thing is, you are not a beggar. You are providing value in exchange for a value. Let's say, for example, that you have a car you want to sell. Okay, it's a decent car. Let's say you want $5,000 for this car. Someone can come up and you can try to sell them this car. This is a good car. I guess your daughter is going to be driving soon. This is a good one. These are its features. Would you like to buy it? Okay, the customer can say yes. The customer can say no. But regardless of what happens, no one's a beggar. No one is humiliated or in a position where they're feeling like they're begging for money, because what you're dealing with is an exchange of value. In exchange for your money, I will give you this car. And everyone, regardless of the outcome, when people part, they are parted as equals. Raising money for a political campaign you believe in is just like that. When you go to a donor, you're basically saying to them, John, I know that you are busy and you've got a business to run, you've got your family, you've got all these things. I know you share the same politics that I share. but I know you don't have time to do this work in the trenches. I will do this work in the trenches. I'm going to run for office and I'm going to do this work for the trenches, and I'm going to carry the banner of your politics forward. I'm going to do that work so you don't have to. Okay? That is a value in exchange for the value. You say, I'm trying to raise this much money for my campaign. How much can you help? This is not begging. This is telling somebody that you have the same beliefs that a prospective donor does. And that if the donor will participate in your campaign, you will carry their beliefs forward along with your beliefs. You may not agree on every single issue, but generally, that is what you are offering to people you are asking money for. Now, I'm not saying that it's a quid pro quo, that I'll vote for your bill if you give me money. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking in terms of general beliefs. You are conservative, I am a conservative. The school board is not conservative. If I get elected, I will bring our conservative beliefs to the school board. That is the approach that you're going to take. And so if you take that opportunity to adjust the mentality in this way, it becomes a lot easier to pick up the phone and dial that number or make that coffee appointment, because that is what you are doing. And you're also giving them an opportunity to exercise their franchise. Now, their franchise is their vote, but the Supreme Court has long held that money constitutes political speech. And you are giving someone an opportunity to use their political power through their checkbook. I've actually had people thank me for asking them for money. And the reason why they thank me is because they've been wanting to do something about this problem for a long time. I've finally given them an avenue to do it. Or they finally see someone that supports their belief system. So this is the attitude you have to take. You are doing them a favor by offering them the chance to wield political power through your campaign and your tenure as a public office holder if you win. You are also giving them an opportunity to sort of invest in the system. Somebody that donates money to your campaign is likely to get involved in other ways as well. That may or may not include you personally, but it gets someone into the fight. So think about that before you make a phone call. Okay. Now, I know it's really easy to say, Rich, I agree with you, but you still may have that feeling of a destructive mentality when you go to pick up that phone. It takes a little bit of time and takes a little bit of effort to take what you agree with in your mind and incorporate it into your heart. When you get the chance to incorporate that mentality into your heart as a fundraiser, you'll be unstoppable. After all, people can say no. And another important thing is you are going to get no's, and you are going to get people who agree to help at disappointing levels. Don't ever take that personally. Don't ever take that as a rejection. Okay? People have a lot of things going on in their lives, and maybe it's not the right time, but it's not a reflection on you. Unless someone comes up to you and says, I'm sorry, Mary, I don't believe in you. I don't think you're going to do a good job. Well, that never happens, particularly with people that you seek out, that you believe have a good opinion of you. Short of that, nothing is just a personal rejection. And that's another thing I train people to do in a variety of ways. You have to be very careful not to take anything that happens in politics personally. There may be hit pieces against you. If you're going to run for the state legislature and you're competitive, you will certainly have, negative campaigning against you. If you run for school board, you'll probably have some negative campaign. You can't take it personally. I was running for re-election once for the Tualatin Valley Water District out here. And, I happen to be a registered libertarian, and there was an internal party fight. And another registered libertarian who was on the other side of this particular party fight decided to run against me while a Democrat went unopposed. And this was a nonpartisan seat, of course, but people knew what was what. And the man spent $20,000 on hit pieces, really ugly hit pieces that were so bad that Professor Moore of Pacific University said that it was the worst he had seen in 40 years. It was featured on the old Mark and Dave show on KXL radio. It was a one-day wire story. It was really bad. I was in Minnesota visiting my folks when this hit, and I got a phone call from a friend of mine. It goes, well, I really don't want to ruin your vacation, but have you heard about what's been in the mailbox? And I said, no. So he emailed it to me, and the blood just ran from my face, right? Who's going to believe this? You know, these are going out all over the district. Tens of thousands of them are in mailboxes right now. And how am I going to counter this? It was so bad that nobody believed it. Newspapers that never endorse water candidates endorsed me. I was invited to debates with this other person. Didn't show up for debates, but everywhere, unprompted by me, people said, you know, this is a lousy hit piece. But I'll tell you, it taught me a very important lesson, is that people will do things in the political realm that they would never do to your face, but you can't take it personally. And the reason why is because, you know, this particular person or a critic of yours in the future, they don't know anything about you, your family, what you believe in, you know, who you pray to, and all of those sorts of things. They know nothing about you. And when things happen and when you're rejected, it tends to be a reflection of something going on with them. Sometimes it's not malicious. Maybe they've got financial problems and a lot of things to worry about. So they can't write you a check. But if you ever do get someone who just outright rejects you, don't take it personally and move on. This is another one of those things that is easy to agree with intellectually, but harder to incorporate in your heart. And if you incorporate it in your heart, you'll be invincible when it comes to these sorts of things. You might not win the election, you might not get the check, but you will not be deterred. And so as you come away from the rest of the things I'm going to be showing you today, take those two attitudinal shifts and think about incorporating them into your heart, because that will make it easier for you to raise money. It will make it easier for you to get through a campaign cycle. And when you're governing, it'll make it easier for you to govern. Are there any questions so far? Okay. People say, well, Rich, when are you going to get to the fundraising part? And I will tell you, first of all, this is the fundraising part. This is part of it. This is what stops a lot of people. Don't let it stop you. Did I win the campaign? Yes, I did. I won it by 60-40. And I spent nothing. You know, so it was that bad. You know, nobody bought it. And also it wasn't a paid position. And Oregonians don't like negative campaigns on volunteer positions. You know, if it's a paid position or a high profile position, they expect, you know, that folks will have a strong skin. But in these nonpartisan local races, with the exception of school boards, it does not typically get so negative. Okay. So section 1, I would say to you, research and identify potential donors. Make a list of everyone you know who could be a potential donor. And, you know, you're going to do several things. You're going to segment your marketplace. I like to divide people into high-level donors, mid-level donors, and low-level donors. Low-level donors in the races I've run for are typically $250 and under. For mid-level donors, I'll typically go from $250 to $2,500. And anything more than $2,500 is a high-level donor. And these are for the races that I've run for. Depending on the race that you're running for, you might want to adjust those numbers, but make a list of everyone who could conceivably help you and put them into one of these three brackets. And don't just do people. Look at political action committees. There are a lot of political action committees that support conservatives. Make a list of those people too. You're going to have to find out who to talk to. And one way you can do that is by going on the Secretary of State's or STAR system. And you can look up political action committees called campaign committees or candidate committees, and you can find out who runs them. And you'll get phone numbers and you'll get email addresses of all of the directors. You'll want to contact these people. If you're a school choice advocate, for example, there are a number of PACs that want to support candidates who support school choice. Whatever it is, it's important to get this money. And Dr. Frank, you will find out that if you're going to run for a state legislative seat, you will need PAC money. You'll need it badly because they're the ones that are able to write the big checks. And I would start introducing yourself to them now before someone else gets in and secures their support. It's early for 2026, but that's something you're going to want to start to do.
Yeah, I've been starting identifying things, getting my name out already because it's such a huge district.
That's good. Now, you're also, when you're segmenting your market, you're going to utilize wealth indicators. Some people know folks that have access to things like the LexisNexis computer system.
Yeah.
On LexisNexis, you can get a complete profile and the giving capacity of particular donors. So whether you're wasting your time or not, sometimes people are wealthy, but they're neck deep in debt. A Lexis search will give you some of that information. But you can also find out if you know where the donor lives. You can go on the U.S. Census Bureau website and you can get a free map of all of the places where people live. And there will be overlays like average income, educational level, those sorts of things. And you can use those to kind of get a feel of what they're capable of giving and what you can ask for. So do the research. One thing that's important is that most people will give money for things that promote what they're interested in. Okay? Not necessarily what you're interested in. If there are some people who their hot button is particular issues, try to find that information. With high and mid-level donors, a Google search will sometimes flesh that out. Maybe they've run for office before. Maybe they are members of certain clubs or organizations. Find out what they're about. Because when you get them to raise money will be when your interests align with their interests. And so you have to say things like, Jane, I know you're pro-life. I'm pro-life. I've seen that you've contributed to, various pro-life organizations. I support that as well. I'm running for office and I will be a pro-life person in the legislature if I get elected, or, the appropriate sex ed policy if you're elected to school board. Whatever the issue is, maybe it's taxes, maybe it's guns, whatever it is, find out what they care about. And if you don't know, if you go into a meeting, just ask them. Okay. Yep. You can just ask them and say, Steve, I know you're conservative, but what issues really light you up? Those sorts of things. The first time you meet someone may not be the time you make the ask. You may want to invite them to coffee or invite them to a place that they like to go, or even invite them to your house. If you start early, fundraising is about relationships. You want to build relationships with these people, not just so you can get a check from them, but you might be able to tap into their network. They may know people they can refer you to who will give you money for your campaign or project. They may also be able to introduce you to people who are opinion leaders. Maybe, Bob's friend is a president of the local Rotarian club and can hook you up with a speaking event. And then you get to meet more people, and those people you can later ask for money. So when you're dealing with people, you are going to be thinking about building relationships. Sometimes if you know them very well, you can be frank. Don't dance around the bush. You can say, Mike, I've known you for 20 years. I know we believe in the same things, but I've come here today asking for your help. I want to carry our politics forward. And if I'm elected, I will do that. But I need to raise X number of dollars. How much of that can I put you down for? Okay. Don't be shy or timid about making the ask. When you get to the point where you're going to ask for money, whether it's after the third meeting or the first meeting or whatever it is, just be clear. Say, Mike, I've appreciated these conversations. I think I've told you that I'm running for school board, and you and I agree with these things. I want to move our politics forward, and I'm willing to fight and dig in the trenches, but I need your help. I have to raise $50,000 for this campaign. How much can I put you down for? Okay. Normally, if you put it that way, they'll say something. If you have a relationship with them and you know them and you tell them what you need, then they will generally give you something. Okay. I like to tell people the total amount that I'm trying to raise, for the campaign or for a media campaign or whatever it is. And I like to say, Mike, this is what I want to do, and I need $20,000 to do it. And oftentimes they'll say, I don't have that kind of money. And the response to that is, I didn't expect that you would cover all of it. I'm just telling you what the need is. How much of that would you like to cover? I mean, don't come back with, well, how about $50 or $100 or $500? Come back with, okay, I understand. How much of that would you like to cover? And maybe he'll say $100, maybe he'll say $1,000, whatever it is. But when you say, how much would you like to cover? They almost never say zero.
Well, it's just like, you don't want to compete against yourself. You don't want to bid against yourself.
That's right.
What I call it.
Exactly right. That's right. And this is where I tied some of these things together. You have to be bold. You cannot be timid. You've got to be confident that you are offering a value in exchange for their money that helps you to come in strong. Not overwhelming, not obnoxiously, but strong. And people respect that. And that's part of the reason why I start these fundraising trainings with the attitudinal shifts you have to make that let you come in strong and not come in as a supplicant. That's the thing. You can't come in as a supplicant. You've got to come in as an equal, offering a value in exchange for another value. And so that will help you. You will segment your market. You will research the people you're asking money from. We have another person coming in, Glenn Lancaster. Hey, Glenn. It's good to see you there. I see your portrait.
Greetings.
Yes. Hi. We've got Dr. Manfield and Mary here, and we're going over some basics of fundraising that I think we've been over before. We've gone over attitudinal shifts that help you go in successfully, how to segment your market, how to research your prospects, and networking. Go to a lot of meetings, shake a lot of hands. Ask the people who support you already to introduce you to people that they know. Networking is really key. You're trying to build relationships here, and if you invest the time, it will be successful. One other thing I want to encourage you to do, if you are running for any office, whatever it is, it's important to have a written campaign plan. Not, I've heard a lot of candidates say, "Oh, I don't need a written campaign plan. I know what I want to do." If you don't have a written campaign plan, you have no campaign plan. Okay. I often like to use the analogy of someone who wants to start a small business and they go into a bank and ask for a small business loan. The first thing the bank will do is say, "Well, let's see your business plan." And if you do not have a written business plan, you'll be laughed out of the bank. Okay. Now, if you're a candidate running for office and you have no written campaign plan, you may not get laughed at, but you're going to hear no a lot more often. You're going to get small token courtesy donations instead of substantial donations. Frank, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem is, I can't have a full campaign plan yet. I've started one. I've addressed your number 1, 2, number 3, a little bit of number 4, and so on. It's on your list.
You're talking about the campaign plan training document?
Yeah, that's what
Right.
training thing. But I can't flush them all out because I really got to have a campaign manager and figure out what we're going to do and stuff like that. But I could do a lot of it.
Yeah.
I've really flushed out number 1 and 2.
That's good. That's good.
But,
I'll cover that. I'll take a side journey and cover that in just a second. But go ahead and write a campaign plan with whatever you have. Okay. If there's a section that you don't have ready yet because you're developing something, that's okay. Let's say you're in a car and you're driving and you see a building under construction. It's not finished yet, but it's under construction. You know that there's something substantial going on there. Okay. It's not a completed building, but there's something substantial going up over there. So if you have a campaign plan that's written, if there's a section that isn't ready yet, okay, like for the campaign budget, you could reasonably say something like, "We are currently researching past races, and determining what amount of money would be necessary." They'll know it's a building under construction.
yeah, I mean, I do. Mine is 6 pages long so far.
That's good. Doesn't have to be a tome.
No, it does. I'm just saying I've got a lot of stuff in here, voter targeting, campaign timelines, staff that we'd have to have, which I don't have.
Sure.
And stuff like that, but yeah, I hate you say, okay, what do I need? The last race that did this was $1 million,
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Yeah,
which was kind of ridiculous.
Well,
I don't have a tendency of wasting money, so mine's a little bit. I don't think I need that much to do what I want to do, but
well, I guarantee you that most of that was PAC money, and think about raising that much.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. I'll just
you
say,
don't need it, great,
Yeah, I have a plan. If I don't need it, what I'll do with the money, I give it back percentages back to people who donated.
Sure, you can do that.
I don't want to spend money just to spend money like we know that one person did in the presidential race.
That's right. That's right. And and if you have surplus funds, you can return it. You can also donate it to other campaigns that you support that are you can give it to a nonprofit. There's a lot of legitimate things you can do, plus give it back to them. Now, Glenn, I did some work for Glenn. He ran a good campaign. The vote was divided in his campaign, and he didn't win, but he was a great candidate. And Glenn, can you chat for a second on what you perceive the value of a written campaign plan was?
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me talk a little bit. But I ran for mayor of Wilsonville in 24. And before that, I had run in 2022 in the primary for House District 26. My 22 campaign, I had no plan, no money, no experience, no team. Other than that, it went really well. Just kidding. That was the first thing when I got connected with you, Richard, and others was, hey, you got to have a plan. Otherwise, the old saying, you plan to lose. And that was the first question. So it was great to go through the process and sort out what as a candidate, I needed to personally focus on versus all the other elements that need to be addressed. And I can tell you, I did not sort all that out by myself. And it became more and more abundantly clear I needed to have help in that regard. So the plan drove the campaign. It went really well. I mean, fundraising, building a volunteer team, all those elements really came together. So yeah, it was a blueprint, followed it, and it worked. Even though I did not win, there's extenuating circumstances. Is that a good way to put it, Richard?
Well, Wilsonville's a tough market for a conservative anyway.
Yeah.
And there were 3 candidates in the race, and that didn't help.
Right.
And there were a lot of other things going on, but you now have, as a result of the campaign you ran, you now have a network of volunteers, you've got a network of media contacts, you have a network of donors, and these are all things you can use for future pursuits. And that is one thing I say in your campaign plan related to fundraising, in your objectives. It's important to lay out secondary objectives that are of value, which will survive the campaign even if you lose. The number one objective of any campaign is always to win the election and be certified as the winner of that election. But there are people who will say, Dr. Frank, I love you. I think you're a great guy, but I don't think you have a snowball's chance in hell. So I'm reluctant to give you a check. Okay. This is where the value of secondary objectives come in. You can, in your written campaign plan, when in your objective section, you have secondary objectives, and you can say, I want to build a network of 50 volunteers that can knock on doors, make phone calls, and do these things. I want to help build the party organization. I want to have 15 new media contacts in the district that I can talk with. I want to build a base of 50 mid and high level donors and have that be in your plan. So you can say to the donor, well, I think you're wrong. I think I am going to win this election. But even if you're right, my campaign is worth investing in, because all of these secondary objectives will survive my campaign, and they will position us to be successful in the future, not just in candidate campaigns, but in ballot measure campaigns and other projects that could bring people together to build the party organization or do whatever you want to do. So the donor has a chance to say, well, that's a good point. Okay, I can see it, and they might write you a check. But that is the beauty of having secondary objectives in the first part of your campaign. Mary, I don't know if you have the document there, but if you go to the training tab on westernlibertynetwork.org, there is, and you'll find a bunch of topics there, and one of them is the components of a campaign plan, and you can download that. And I know Glenn has already seen that and come to some of our training conferences. So that's helpful. So you'll notice that I've talked about attitude adjustment. I've talked about various networks, indirect forms of raising money, building networks, having a campaign plan. They seem like unrelated topics to some people, but they're not. They are really things that have to be woven together. And if they are woven together, you will be much more successful as a fundraiser than if they're not woven together. So take a look at all of these topics. There are training documents for that are separate. Okay, we've talked a little bit about cultivating connections, engaging opportunities, and it's really important that if you have a mid or high level donor, you ask them to do something else for your campaign other than write checks. Writing checks is, of course, the most important thing when you're raising money. But remember, these people have feelings too, and no donor wants to be thought of as an ATM machine. Okay? Tell them that you would, in addition to their money, you would like their ongoing advice. Sometimes this can be a hazard because people start to think they can micromanage you. But listen to them very carefully. Listen, sometimes they'll have useful things to say. But tell them you want your advice. You'd like their participation. Maybe you'd like them to introduce you at a local service club meeting that they're a member of. Whatever it is, give them something to do other than write a check, so they don't feel like you're treating them like an ATM machine. Establish a regular communication plan to keep your donors informed. This might be a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter that you send to your mid and upper level donors. This is separate from the newsletter your campaign might want to send out to the world. This is where you give them a little bit of inside information. You can tell donors that they will get this exclusive newsletter, so they feel like they're getting something special, that they're being treated specially, which they are. These are all important things. Highlight the intangible outcomes of previous donations. If they've donated to you before, what did they get for their money? And say, you donated before and I was able to accomplish these things. Again, maybe you didn't win the election, but maybe you built a network of media contacts or volunteers or did something else. Show them if they've invested in you before, show them what they got for their investment, tell them what they're going to get for their future investment. The campaign plan is a part of that. Now, I wouldn't recommend showing the campaign plan to everybody. I would recommend showing it to your high-level donor prospects and maybe some of your mid-level donor prospects. You don't want everyone knowing what your plan is. But people who are willing to make significant investments in your campaign probably should know. They should at least know there's a plan. And remember to, speaking to what Dr. Frank said about him having the beginning of a plan, but it's not ready yet. Remember that these are living documents. Yeah, I've seen people say, campaign plan version 1, campaign plan version 2, and then I always laugh when I see campaign plan final version.
Yeah.
There's never a final version. You may actually want to start over again. If you hire a campaign manager or a consultant that has a better way to go, you may end up scrapping the one you've got and then going with a new one. But it's okay. At any given moment, you should have something to present to a high-level or mid-level donor that you think would be impressed by seeing even a proto plan. Okay. And, that's, it's sales in a way. It's sales. When you ask for a meeting, make sure that you ask to meet them in a quiet place. Okay. I've seen people try to have fundraising meetings at Starbucks. It doesn't work. It's clanky, it's loud, you don't know who's listening, all of these sorts of things. You're going to want to ask them to go to someplace really quiet. I like the bars of hotels. Sometimes they'll serve you breakfast there. Like the Crown Plaza Hotel, I think somebody said they were there once at one of our events. In the morning, the hotel restaurant is very quiet. Find some place quiet to talk. Ask them to come. Tell them that you want to tell you're going to tell your donor. You're going to say, Bob, I'd love to have coffee with you. I want to talk about some things. I have decided to run for this office. I have a campaign plan I want to go over with you. I'm going to be asking you for your support, but I want to get your thoughts and your advice. Will you meet with me? Most of the time, if you say I'm going to ask for support, that sends off a red light, and the people that don't want to support you will run. But you don't want to surprise them with this. You don't want to lure them into a meeting and then hit them with a big ask. People don't react well to that. It's like we're going to talk about fundraising coffees later. I've seen people invite everyone over to the house to ask for money without telling them they were going to be asking for money, and they don't appreciate that. So when you have the meeting, say, Bob, I'm running for the legislature. I think I've told you that, and I've got a campaign plan I'd like to show you. I would like to meet you for coffee, someplace quiet, and I would like to show it to you. I would like to ask you what you think, and I would like to ask for your support after you've seen those things. And if they're not interested, you'll avoid wasting a bunch of time. If they're willing to meet you, the chances are high that you're going to come out of there with some kind of commitment. It might be large, might be small, but you're going to walk out of there with some kind of a commitment, and you're not just going to ask for money. Again, you're going to ask for access to their personal network. If they have community ties, you're going to ask for access to those community ties. But it's important they have skin in the game, and you're worth investing in. You're showing a path to success, maybe not a path to electoral victory, but a path to some kind of quantifiable, measurable success. And then have them there. When they're in the meeting, don't waste time with a lot of chit chat. How's the wife? Fine. Don't go into long dissertation about someone's nephew's baseball team, because you're going to end up wasting a bunch of time. Get to the topic and you say, well, that's great. Well, I don't want to waste your time. Let me show you what I have here, and make your case. Okay. You're running for the legislature. This is why. Okay. This is your plan, and this is the benefit. Another thing I talk about in another training is how to build an argument. Fundraising, you're offering an argument why a person should donate money to you. And there are 4 components to any good argument. The first one is to cite a specific problem. Okay? Our city council is out of control. Our school board is out of control. They're doing X, Y, and Z. Okay? Get them to agree with you that the problem you cite and the reason you're running is because of specific things that are off balance. If you can get them to agree with you, you're a long ways to have them on your side. The second component is show them what is called an inherent barrier. Okay, inherent barrier is a debate term, and it is something inherent in the current system that prevents the problem from being solved. Okay. Mike, I know you agree with me that our school board is out of control. They're doing all this trans stuff. There are tampons in the men's boys' rooms. It's just, there's a cultural mess. That's the problem. The inherent barrier is like, the reason why this is not getting solved is because we have a school board where everyone buys into this. We've got a woke school board, and there is no one on the board who can say the emperor has no clothes. There's no one on the board who is willing to stand up and put up a bunch of tripwires to these policies. That's the barrier. Okay. The third thing is the plan. The plan has to overcome the barrier and solve the problem. So this is why I'm running for office. Okay, I'm running for office because I would be able to do that. I would be able to say the emperor has no clothes from the position of a board seat. I would be able to fight for various policies and look for ways to divide the board who want to do bad things, or maybe put up tripwires or do other things, let the public know and generate opposition. I would be able to do all these things as a school board member, which would overcome the inherent barrier. You're not going to use the word inherent barrier, but you're going to overcome the obstacle to solving the problem and make headway to solving the problem itself. And then you'll show the advantage. Because if I am elected and I'm able to do these things, we have a chance of turning this ship around away from wokeness. Okay, we have a chance of stopping these ridiculous policies and getting our schools back to reading, writing, arithmetic, and other basics. Okay, so you've got a problem, a barrier to the problem being solved, a plan to overcome that barrier and solve the problem, and then the advantages you're going to realize. This is the substance of your conversation with your donor. Okay? And then you follow up by saying, so this is my plan to win. I have a plan to win, and I also have a plan to use my campaign to generate these secondary benefits. that will survive the campaign no matter how it comes out, that will help us to fight in the future. And a part of that campaign is a budget. I need $1 million to run this race, or $100,000, or whatever it is. Okay. And if you don't have that full budget yet, because it's too early in the campaign, you can have a preliminary budget. You know you're going to need to hire a campaign manager if you're running for anything significant. You know you're going to need to set up a basic social media infrastructure. You know you're going to have to, do things like photo shots and, some basic printing, logo design, whatever they are. These are things you can decide without having a full plan in hand. And you can have a budget for that. This is my kickoff budget. Okay. There'll be another budget when all these other components are in place, but this is what's going to get me started. Okay. Give them a specific number. Let them know what they will get or what they will see if they help to donate toward that amount. And then you're going to make your ask. So, Mike, how much can I put you down for? You've seen why I'm running, the argument for my candidacy. You've seen my campaign to win and accomplish other valuable things. I know you can help. Yes, I need your contacts. I need introductions to people you know and organizations you're a part of, and I need your advice. But right now, I need a check. Okay. Again, the discussion, tell them how much you want to fund the whole thing. On very rare occasions, someone will say, I haven't seen anyone step up like this in a long time. I'll write you a check for 10 grand. Okay. I've had it happen before. Okay. The largest donation Western Liberty Network has ever had is $100,000. Okay. My socks blew off. And, I said, my budget is $150,000. How much are you willing to fund? He said $100,000. Okay. Because he was impressed with the presentation. Okay. And then it happened again. Right. So I've been expanding my operations. And next year I'm going to go back to him and ask for $200,000. Because I'll tell you, the hardest donation to get is the first one. If you get one donation of any size, it will help. It'll be easier to get the second one, especially if you're able to show any output. If you're able to show any accomplishment, you'll be able to go back to them. Because if they donate once, they'll donate again. And they'll usually donate at a level equal or higher to their first donation. So that's, very important. When you go in, if you know that they care about specific issues, make sure those issues are highlighted in your campaign plan. Okay, that means you may have multiple versions of your campaign plan. None of them contradictory. None of them, it's not like you're writing a different plan for each different person, but you are bringing forward different aspects of your plan to appeal to different people.
Okay. Then question, do you show them the whole plan or you just show them parts of the plan is what you're saying?
If it's a high-level donor that I trust to be an ally, I will show them the whole plan. I will ask them not to share it. I will not give them a copy. I will show them a copy and let them read it while they're, in the meeting. But I would let them see the whole plan. If they are skeptical of your ability to win, you need to show them your strategy. How are you going to prove them wrong? Okay. Maybe you're going to recruit a spoiler candidate, a member of the Pacific Green Party, to enter the race and pull votes from a liberal.
Yeah.
Okay. I've done that before. It works. Okay. Again, these are high-level donors that you trust. And you will tell them that I'm not showing this plan to anyone but a few select people. You're one of them. and this is what we're going to do, and just lay it out. If you're asking for a lot of money from these people, they have a right to know
Where it's going.
where it's going and how you plan to deploy your resources. Just like a bank deserves to know how you plan to spend the money that they're giving you a small business loan for.
Yeah, it's no different working for DOD. We came into a meeting, we asked to see if they could get some money, and we came out with $1 million.
Yeah,
Because we showed them this is what it could do, this is what we want to do.
sure. That's right. So this is, face-to-face meetings, of course, that goes without saying for individuals. Do your best to anticipate what their objections might be. And above all, well, there are two other things I want to mention. Show gratitude. I've seen people accept large donations or mid-sized donations and not show a lot of gratitude. You thank them. You
Yeah.
thank them after the campaign. You write them and mail them an actual written thank you note.
Yeah. That's what my daughter, who is a lieutenant commander in the Coast Guard, says. You write a thank you card for everything you get donations or help.
That's very smart. Almost nobody does that anymore.
Yeah, well, my family does. Even our grandkids do that when they get a gift or whatever.
Yep. It goes a long way, and almost assures that you'll get a second donation later. Because people are stunned when they see these things. And also, again, stewardship. Keep good communications with donors. Do a newsletter just for donors. If you have a spare moment, give them a call. Ask them how they are. Don't always ask them for money. Sometimes just say, I really appreciate your investment in my campaign. I want to let you know what's going on. Do you have a minute? And they will usually appreciate that quite a lot. And in the process, have a personal discussion about each other's grandkids or whatever you're doing. It's building relationships, and that's what it's about. But most important, I'll circle back to my top thing. Your attitude to fundraising is going to ultimately determine whether you're successful or how successful you are at fundraising. So remember, you are worth investing in. You are not coming with your hat in hand. You are offering to advance their political paradigm through your elbow grease in exchange for their funding. It's a completely honorable way to proceed. And if you are able to incorporate these things, and if you get rejected, not take it personally or as a reflection on you, and you follow the rest of this advice, you will be successful. I can guarantee you, I don't know how successful you'll be, but if you do these things, I guarantee you will be more successful than if you do not do these things. And so many of the comments that we've shared here, many of them are covered in the training sheet that you have, but some of them are not. So this recording will be up on the WLN website shortly after we're done with the meeting. And you can download it or watch it and take additional notes if you think you've meant something. Are there any questions before we go on to the next section? Okay, no questions? Go ahead.
I want to apologize for showing up late. Car broke down, dog ate my homework. I promise I'll be on time next time.
That's okay, Glenn. It's always good to have you nearby.
Yeah, we gave you all the tasks to complete.
That's right. You're in charge of everything now.
No, that's a familiar rule. In business, it was whoever showed up last got the bill.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
At least that's what it's at all our engineering meetings. Okay, you're late. Okay, we got you to do this.
Okay, so things are going swimmingly. I want to cover, we don't have a lot of time left. These are supposed to last an hour. We're already going over. I'm okay with it if you guys are. But I wanted to talk about holding a fundraising coffee or event. Okay. These can be very successful. You want to make sure you don't spend a lot of money on it. But if you invite people to come, oh, we lost Mary. That's okay. If you invite someone to, or what am I saying? If you have somebody let's say they have a nice house. Maybe you have a really nice house. The kind of thing where you could host 20 or 30 people. Okay. Ask this person if they would host a fundraising coffee for you or a dessert. Sometimes it's just coffee and cookies. Sometimes people bring in desserts, whatever it is. But the idea is this is going to be specifically a fundraising event. It's like, Rose, I know you have a gorgeous house. It's well suited to entertaining. And I know you support me for running for school board. I would like to know if you would be willing to open your house so that I could have a fundraising event and folks could have coffee or maybe a nice little dessert. I can talk to the folks and we can, ask them for support. Sooner or later, you'll find someone that will do it. Homes are wonderful. If you have to, you can get a banquet room at a restaurant or you can get a room at a hotel, but I don't like to do that. They're less personal. You want people to have a personal experience. You want them to have a casual experience. If you're going to use a room at a restaurant or a hotel, fine, but a nice home is really the best place to do this. And you're going to ask the host to do a couple of other things if she or he agrees to host the event. One is to access their network of people who they think have money that would support your candidacy. Would he or she be willing to do that? And would he or she be willing to do an introduction? Sometimes they're not. People are terrified of public speaking, even before small groups of people that they know. Not everyone is willing to do that. But if you've got a place to have the event, that's fine. Before this event, you want to have it at least like 2 or 3 weeks in advance. You want to write down the names of everybody you know that is a prospect or an existing donor or a close friend or somebody who is capable of writing a substantial check. And of course, at these kind of events, you'll get people that write a $50 or $100 check. That's fine. But you're looking for people who will donate $1,000, $500, $2,500, whatever it is that you think these people are capable of giving. So you're going to put out an invitation, or whoever your campaign manager is going to put out an invitation to these people. And you're going to follow up with phone calls. And you're going to invite them. You're going to do you're launching a new phase of your campaign, and you would like them to be there. This is a fundraising event. You're going to tell them it's a fundraising event and that they're not required to donate money. You're welcome to donate money. There will be an ask, but there are going to be a lot of really good people there. I'm going to do a candidate presentation there. There'll be some nice desserts. It's a nice place. It'll be a good place to meet folks. Invite them to come. And if you get them to come, you're on board. If they show up to an event that they know is a fundraising event, almost all of them will donate something. I went to a couple of them. I didn't have a lot of money. I threw 50 at one. I threw 100 at another. People who were there donated substantially more. So you've got your guest list. Make sure your invitations are personalized. Okay. If you send an email, make sure it's personalized for them. If it's by mail, that's easy to do. If it's by phone, call them yourself. Nobody gets a yes as often as the candidate himself or herself. You can have a scheduler do it. You can have the campaign manager do it, but you will not get yeses as often as the candidate gets yeses. You're going to include your basic details, time, date, where the venue is, overview of the candidate. Try to get RSVPs. Send out reminders. Ensure that guests feel valued and appreciated for their attendance. It's pretty basic. Now, when you get these people here, you want to have some ringers. Find 2 or 3 people that you know well enough to say, hey, at this fundraising event, I need to get the ball rolling. Are you willing to guarantee me a check for $500 or $1,000. So when it's time to ask for money, you'll raise a check in the air or you'll raise your hand and commit to that amount. Before the event, have a few ringers in there. So when it comes time to do the ask, who's gonna donate money? You don't want to have crickets. Once you get crickets, nobody wants to be first. You've seen those National Geographic movies of penguins on an ice floe. No one wants to be the first penguin in the water. So they end up pushing one in to see if it gets eaten. And if it doesn't get eaten, all the other penguins jump right in. Okay? This is how these events go. So you've got to have a couple of ringers up front. Okay, who's ready to make a commitment? And then the first person throws their check up in the air. The next person throws their check up in the air. A third person throws their check in the air. Then you've got a little momentum, and we'll see who's fourth. We'll see who's fifth. And that's how it usually will go. The candidate is not going to be there on time. If it starts at 7 o'clock, you don't want to have this candidate there at 7 o'clock. Excuse me. You're going to want to have a period of time where they're waiting for the candidate. This actually helps increase the relative prestige of the candidate. The candidate's busy. He's out there campaigning. He's working hard, or she's working hard. And it gives people a chance to have a cup of coffee, relax, chit chat, a little bit of a mixer. Candidate will be here in 10 minutes. Go ahead. Do you have a question?
Well, I was going to ask you that. What is the timeline that you think about that should be?
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes these things happen by feel. But
You
I
want to be
generally say,
respectively late.
yeah, 15 minutes. I wouldn't go past 20 much, but I would say right about there and then say, oh, he's here. And so people will have had a chance to kind of settle in, use the bathroom if they need to,
Talk to each other.
get a cookie, talk to each other, and then, okay, the candidate's here. Great, yay, hooray. And you're going to want to have someone introduce the candidate. Okay? It doesn't have to be someone associated with the campaign. It can be the host or hostesses, but the best person is somebody who has some prominence with these folks. If there's a state legislator or a well-known city councilor or somebody like that who has some credibility with the folks that you've assembled at this event, have them do an introduction. Okay? And say, yep, thank you for coming. Hope you all had a chance to get dessert and coffee. There's still a few over there if you want some. But the candidate is here. I want to introduce, Glenn Lancaster. He's a candidate for Wilsonville City Council. I've known him for a long time. He's done this, he's done that. He's a wonderful person. He'd be a great city councilor, and he's the one we're all supporting tonight. So let's give a hand to Glenn Lancaster. Yay! Or boo, whatever it is. And so the candidate comes up, thanks everybody, makes mention of a couple of people, talks about how well things are going. But again, you're going to do the 4 points. You're going to talk about what the problem is, what the barrier to solving those problems are, what your plan is to overcome the barrier and solve the problem, and the benefits. And this is why I'm running for office. And I need your help to do it. Okay, now that's as far as the candidate's going to go in doing the ask. Are there any questions? There'll be a few questions. I've seen a lot of candidates make a big mistake in answering questions forever. People start to leave. Politicians love to talk, and they need to know when to shut up. Okay? Your presentation should not be more than 15 minutes max. 10 is better. Okay, you should be able to get through everything in 10 minutes. And then you can say, my campaign manager has told me I have time for 2 or 3 questions. So you limit it. Make the campaign manager the bad guy. Okay, ask 2 or 3 questions. You don't want to ask answer a lot of questions at these events, because people will get bored and start to go home. Another is that you might get a question you're not ready for, and it makes you look bad. By limiting yourself to 2 or 3 questions, you minimize the possibility of that happening. Then after the 2, go ahead. You got another?
Well, and someone asks you a question about it, says, well, I don't have an answer to that right now because I don't have a better understanding of it. So I'll get back to you with it. And actually didn't get back to them about it.
Yes, that's a very good thing to do.
Okay.
Don't try to BS your way through something if you don't know it. Never works. We talk about that in our debate training course. But yeah, say, I haven't thought of that before. I'd like to give it some thought before I just shotgun you an answer. Let me call you back. That's perfectly acceptable. That and when you've answered your last question, just say, I know that others of you have questions. I'd be happy to answer them for you privately. Why don't you meet me after the meeting? And I'll be happy to answer your questions so they don't feel like they've been left out. But after you've answered your second or third question, the person who introduces you comes back, or maybe somebody who's a really good, if you happen to have an auctioneer as a friend or something, you're not going to do an auction, but then you're going to say, okay, Glenn's a great candidate. We need to get behind him here. So this is the time when we ask for your support so we can get him into office. Who's first? And this is where your first ringer hands up a check. Okay, yeah, that's $1,000. That's a good way to get this kicked off. Who's next? Have your second ringer throw up a check, and the third one if you have one. And then say, okay, that's great. We've got a good start. We're a third of the way to our goal, or we're halfway to our goal, or whatever you think is appropriate. And who else can help with a commitment or a check? We can take credit card if you're equipped for that, but commitments are good too. And you will get additional commitments. If you have a group of 30 people there and they all know it's a fundraiser and they've all been there, and there are a couple of ringers that go off first, you will get additional donations. And then you thank everybody. You have a little mixer time where candidate can answer some questions privately. People can have a couple other desserts. Then everybody goes home. The campaign writes a nice thank you letter or something like that. I don't even like a thank you card. I like a thank you letter. And thanking the host for being so helpful. Thank you cards to all of the donors. Get those checks deposited, get them reported on Orstar, and you've had a successful event. Are there any questions? Does this make sense to you?
Does me. But
Okay. Has any of this information been of value to you?
Yeah, I don't write very many notes. I mean, I have a whole page here.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife is very good. She'd have like 10 pages here, but yeah, it's got some ideas, things I'm going to add to my plan, and stuff that I didn't think about putting in there.
Good. I asked that question because I like to update these trainings, and if I'm telling people things they already know, it's not as valuable.
Well, it's important that you taught the first part is the mind shift, because I'm not a person who likes to ask for money from people.
Yep.
My mind is shifting to that. I mean, I don't mind asking it from a department or from and so on. It's different, but asking money from people who are struggling is a really hard thing sometimes.
Well, yeah, and it's real easy to say and sometimes accurate to say. A lot of us are struggling right now, but that's find out who's committed and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are some people who just can't, and that's understandable. But I'm glad you've given me this feedback. It's really helpful. I want to give, I don't claim to be a genius. I often say that I'm not a genius. I've just been around the track a whole bunch of times. I've been involved in politics for 35 years now, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've done a few things right, and I've tried to cobble those together. So Glenn, do you have anything to add? You've been through all of this.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I ran for the state rep, not knowing what I was doing in 2022, but I did manage to go to one campaign training seminar down in Salem, which was kind of helpful, but I also got turned on to WLN, and there was an online training you did, which really was helpful, and it clued me in on, okay, this is, especially as a neophyte, unexperienced, no experience candidate, you need all the help you can get. You gotta you got to make that leap, and there's an element of trust in it when you onboard a consultant, a campaign manager, a team, volunteers. There's a level of trust you have to be willing to engage in, because there's not enough of the candidate to go around. That's when you get through it all, the plan and the actions and the rest of it, it becomes apparent what the candidate needs to do most. And my direct experience on fundraising was I got the best results when I got in front of one-on-one or two-on-one with donors and asked for the order. I'm 40 years in sales, so I don't have a problem with asking for money and fundraising, that kind of stuff. But you're right, there is a process and a technique and an art to it. So I appreciate, when I come in on these, I always learn something new, Richard, so I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. And it's always good to see you, Glenn. And Dr. Frank, what are you a doctor of, by the way?
I have a doctor in aeronautical and astronautical engineering.
Oh, very, very fun. So I imagine you're having a good time watching SpaceX and Blue Origin and all
Yeah,
the new things going on.
and some of this
On with the rocket scientists, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and I listen to some of these stupid things that people say that are against it. Says you have no idea what you're talking about. But my daughter on my palm card put on here, politics is not rocket science.
Is worse in some ways, but yes, I know what you mean. So anyhow, we're doing these trainings now on Sundays at 1 in the afternoon and Thursdays at 9 a.m. as you know. And so we'll be doing different topics throughout this election cycle. So I hope you'll return. And if you need anything, contact me. You can do it through the Western Liberty Network, or you can contact me by email. So God bless you all, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, I went to your guys' training session earlier before the Republican committees, the organization.
Oh, sure.
I was there for that.
Good. I hope you'll be at the next one. It's going to be on January 31st with a reception held the night before. And
next year, I hope. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So anyhow, God bless you, and have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.